Hey everyone, Sean Garrett here, founding attorney of Garrett PLC and founder of the Legal Eagle podcast. As you know, my goal with this podcast is not to brain dump complex business law and tax concepts, but instead to highlight some of the entrepreneurs and business leaders in the communities that I serve. I'm licensed to practice law in North Carolina, South Carolina, Illinois, and Missouri. So most of these stories are going to be coming out of Charlotte, Greenville, Chicago, and St. Louis. Today we have Elizabeth Brackett with Brackett HR. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Now, Elizabeth and I, we met a few weeks ago and we were out networking as entrepreneurs do. And we started talking about some, like I said, a little bit more in-depth and nuanced areas of law and HR planning. And Elizabeth and I connected via email. And I said, you know what? We are just having such a great discussion about some laws that are going into effect in 2024 and then 2025. Let's just chat about that on our podcast. But before we dive into that, I'd love to learn more about Elizabeth, who you are, who you serve in your business, and let's start there.
Great, thank you. So, Elizabeth Brackett with Brackett HR, and I am a HR consulting company. We are an HR consulting company, and we serve in the space of companies that are big enough to have HR problems, but not big enough to have an entire HR department. And that's where we can come in and fill a void. The reality is lots of companies maybe don't have the need for an entire HR headcount, but they need somebody to call. So we serve in this space as an HR hotline. So call me when something crazy comes up. I jokingly kind of always say that I'm in charge of can I, should I, how do I? And the reality is I get a lot of, oh my gosh, I already did. And how much trouble am I in? How can I fix it? So,
I love those. I love the hypotheticals. So let's
yeah,
just say my friend.
right, exactly. I'm asking for a friend. So yeah, so that's the role that I'm in. Been in business for 5 years, was in the HR consulting space for many, many years prior to this. And in the beginning of 2020, started my own business. This will resonate with lots of entrepreneurs out there. I decided to open my business in January of 2020 and ordered business cards and marketing material and cute pens with my name on them. And the world immediately shut down. So all my business development plans of going to HR conferences and handing out business cards and all those things went by the wayside. But I was really blessed that I had a few people that were willing to come on board and help me get started. And it's been just a great whirlwind of a ride since then. We do HR consulting, HR projects, lots of HR training, and we do compensation work. Anywhere where a company has a hole or a need for some HR guidance or HR assistance, I am lucky enough to have the last name Brackett. So think of me as an HR bracket of your business.
I love that. I love that. I'm going to dive in a little bit more into your entrepreneurial drive. What made you decide to start Brackett HR? What was the driving force?
I would love to tell you that it was really intentional, but I can't really say that. I had a client who said, Elizabeth, she had been saying for years, you should do this. You should do it on your own. And I kept saying, are you crazy? I'm not cut out for entrepreneurial role. I'm perfectly happy sort of, going to work every day, getting my paycheck, keeping my head down, doing what the boss asks me to do. And that's where I see myself. And at the end of 2019, I was in between jobs and she caught me on a good day and said, I will give you your first project. I have a need and you're not working. You're looking for a job. And please, Elizabeth, this will be a great opportunity for you to sort of dip your toe in the water and see what you think about running your own business. And that was that was how it started. And again, like I said, I was really blessed. And what's the saying? Those that work hard have better luck. And
Hmm.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so, I mean, I worked hard and grew the business, and all of a sudden I was a year into it and the lights were still on, and uh, it hadn't imploded or anything. So,
Yeah.
every year I've grown and gotten bigger. And, so, yeah, so it has become very intentional as far as the entrepreneurial role, but it did not start out that way.
Yeah. Well, I think that we hear so many podcasts and we hear so many stories about, the Jeff Bezos of the world that started out, had this big entrepreneurial epiphany and sat in a room and now they're on yachts. But, what I love is the small to, mid-market businesses where we drive work-life balance and we drive, eh, you know, happiness for employees and we drive our communities truthfully, and that's the flip side of business that doesn't get talked about enough. So I think that's amazing. And another thing that I want to talk about are relationships. I love hearing that someone believed in you and believed in your process and believed in you so much that they maybe not forced you into entrepreneurship, but those relationships, that's why we network, that's why we
Hmm.
don't burn bridges, that's why we really stay connected in our community. So I think that's an amazing story. I wouldn't discredit that at all, so I think that's awesome. Now, you mentioned that you help people that are big enough to have HR problems. In my head, I think that's two people plus. Because anytime you are working with, if you're not working with yourself and you're working with someone else,
Yeah.
100% there is an HR problem brewing, whether you know it or not.
Brewing,
So,
potentially. Right.
yeah, exactly. So, do you mind honing in on that a little bit more? Do you work with two plus, or is there like a year in business? What do you kind of quantify as your ideal client?
So my ideal client is a small to medium size company. It can be, as you said, it can be a startup, with two people that are looking to hire that third person and want advice about, how do we hire the right person? How do we find the right person? It can be that they, something as simple as, what interview questions do I ask, Elizabeth? Should I have an application in place? Do I need to give them an offer letter? Well, it depends on what state you're in. I mean, so it can be advisory, it can be strategic, it could be compliance based. So that's, depending on what their need is. And again, as a consultant, it's my job to help them. Even maybe they don't know what they need. So maybe I just need to get time on the calendar to have a conversation, and we'll talk through and figure out what they need. So that small to medium sized business going from 2 to 10 employees, or in some cases, it's a company that has, I don't know, 50, 60, 80, 100 employees maybe. And maybe they even have an HR person, but the
Mm.
HR person is overwhelmed, or the HR person needs somewhat of a mentor, and it's a new HR person, or it's an office manager who's doing HR off the side of their desk, and they need somebody that can be the HR advisor, helping them, know what the nuances are of a particular regulation change or best practices in that space, things like that. So that's really the majority of the hats I wear. Again, I do a lot of training, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching for clients, and in some cases I am the fractional HR person, or somebody on my team is the fractional HR person. So, maybe again, they don't need a head count, they don't need a HR person, but they need somebody 3 hours a week, or they need to know that, they can pick up the phone and call me and ask me an HR question. I've got clients that I talk to 3 times a year, and I've got clients that I talk to 3 times a day. So it really depends on what they've got going on, as far as, them reaching out to me as a resource. The other part of what I do is reach out to them. So, what we're going to be talking about today is a perfect example of where this rule is changing, and I made sure that all my clients or past clients or potential clients were aware that, heads up, this is happening. So that's the other role that I'll play with my business clients.
Well, awesome. Thanks for the clarity. So two more things I want to hit on before we wrap up. First one, I want to dive into this the new increased salary requirements that took effect July 1st, and you mentioned to me that there's a big one going into effect January 1st. Will you
Right.
chat about that a little bit? And, advise some of the entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast what's going on there.
Right. So this is a Department of Labor regulatory change. They issued it in April, and I stress that to say that is frustrating. That is, as a business owner, and again, I'm wearing both hats in this conversation, by the way. I have employees, and so I have to think about it as a business owner, but I'm also the HR practitioner too, right? So, thinking that the Department of Labor can issue a regulation that's going to be so significant to our budgets, and they did it in April, is, again, frustrating, crazy, whatever adjective you like. And the reality is that the regulatory change was taking the number from 38 or $35,000, which is what it has been for the last several years, and changed to July 1, it changed to the 43.8 number. So if you had a salaried exempt employee, a lot of employers use the term salaried. The HR term is exempt from overtime. So when you hear people talk about exempt, non-exempt is typically hourly, exempt is typically salaried. So when we're talking about a salaried exempt employee, they have to make a certain amount to be eligible to be exempt from overtime. And so that number went from $35,000 to $43,000 in July. Okay, not terrible. 35 to 43, that's not the end of the world. A lot of employers could absorb that number, or they were in a situation where if you had an exempt employee, you were already paying them the 43, above the 43.8 number. But the reality is the January 1 number that's going into effect is the 58,656 number. And 58,656 is a big number, especially if you were paying $35,000 at the beginning of this year, and within 12 months, you're being asked to pay those folks the 58,656 number. So it's a big jump. And so that's what the DOL has issued, and that's what we as employers are trying to figure out. Okay, what options do I have? Do I have any options? Or is it just, I guess I have to give everybody a, $12,000, $15,000 raise next month?
No, that's huge. That's huge. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. So, and you even clarified what an exempt employee is. So I really appreciate your thorough analysis of that. If anyone's listening and you've got questions, we'll drop Elizabeth's information on the post and at the end of this call. So make sure you're paying attention to that. If you have any exempt employees per the definition,
Can I clarify
explore that.
one more thing as far as
Yeah,
exempt employees? And
by all
so
means.
again, this is just an area that I see with employers that they can easily misclassify people, because it's a three-prong test to legitimately legally classify somebody as an exempt employee. So there's the salary threshold test. That's that salary number that we've been talking about. The second prong of the test is they have to be paid a salary, which means I can't be making unlawful deductions from their paycheck. Your paycheck is your paycheck is your paycheck. And so for most exempt employees, there's not going to be a reason why their paycheck would fluctuate based on quantity or quality of work. And so again, I've got to meet the salary threshold test, and then I've got to meet the salary basis, paying them on a salary, not making unlawful deductions. And then the third prong of the test is the duties test. And so they have to be performing duties under the legitimate exemptions established by the Department of Labor and the Fair Labor Standards Act. They have to be performing those duties that qualify them to be an exempt employee. So I can't take somebody that's a maintenance worker, and just because I'm paying them $58,656 starting January 1, that's not going to legitimately make them an exempt employee or keep them an exempt employee. So it's a 3-pronged test when I'm looking at are they classified correctly as an exempt employee.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Elizabeth. So yeah, if anyone has questions, if you have employees that fall under one of those prongs, reach out to Elizabeth. She'd be happy to consult with you, chat with you about it, maybe onboard you. But yeah, we're raising awareness, and that's what we do. So one of the last questions I have is, of course, the name of the podcast is The Legal Eagle. A lot of people don't know what that means, but of course, I practice law and I golf way more than I should. But getting an eagle in golf it's unattainable. Most golfers have not achieved an eagle. A lot of golfers get par. We're okay with that. It's par for the course. Some golfers get birdies, but we're trying to achieve excellence. So, Elizabeth, what does excellence look like in your industry? What does excellence look like for you and your business? What's your eagle? What are you striving for?
I think my quick answer is to keep my clients out of hot water. Making sure that they're prepared for the HR day, so to speak, that they're balancing business needs with HR concerns. That's a difficult balance some days as a business owner with compliance and HR in mind. So making sure that they are well prepared, educated, and that they're able to grow their business and to take their business to the next level with HR support, not HR hindrances.
Awesome. Well, we hope you achieve your eagle. We know that that's the excellence that you strive for, and I really appreciate you being on our podcast. Elizabeth, thanks so much for being here.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
How do people find you? How do you want people to reach out to Brackett HR?
So LinkedIn, obviously, Elizabeth Brackett, Brackett HR on LinkedIn. Also, there's a website, bracketthr.com. So that's Brackett with 2 T's. And contact information is on my website. They can book a discovery call. And again, just happy to be in a situation where I can help serve in this space.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Appreciate you, Elizabeth. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye.